How to understand when it is time to quit veganism? This question, the statement kind of begs two things. One is jokes about that, why even start being vegan? Who is vegan in 2024? I was vegan for 10 minutes, so I quit. I hated it. Why would anyone be vegan? On the other hand, of course, the telltale saying that if you are quitting veganism, you were never vegan. But practically speaking, people do go through experiments. People do put certain philosophies to test. They put certain lifestyles to test. The nature of our psyche is that some rational voices, some reasoning does not appear to be convincing enough when we have strong enough viewpoints in our informational field. I think that humans, there's a huge joke played on humans that we're given both the biology, we're deeply rooted in nature, and at the same time we have consciousness to understand our nature. Because animals, they do things that they don't think about them. They don't analyze why they want to play, like some predators, why they want to play with their prey before eating it. Animals literally engage in a lot of brutality to do that, but they don't think about it. They think nothing about it. And humans, we can judge our own actions. And so I think that veganism happens in people's lives on this path of getting red-pilled when you get exposed to the idea of the inherent evil of the world, inherent evil of the nature, and human as a part of nature. The, by the way, is never used with nature. I forgot about it and I keep using it all the time, but it's grammatically incorrect. So when humans start getting cognizant about their own evil, they want to not be evil because we want to be good, because we have such trait as empathy, we have such trait as altruism. Those were the traits that we developed, behavioral traits, that helped us to survive and form very stable and very prolific community, very prolific population, so to speak. And that's why when those things clash, when we are confronted with realization of our biology, we want to do something with it because we think that, okay, we created civilizations. We erected so many complex things on the face of Earth. How come can we not overcome and bypass our biology? There must be a way to save ourselves from the burden of nature. And veganism is the whole philosophy in the framework of science that caters to this idea that you do not need to do any harm. But again, as I like to say, veganism is not ethical, it's aesthetical because it does do harm. Any anthropogenic activity does harm. The moment a human is born, a human does both good and harm, good and bad. So there is no way to be ultimately good. It's impossible because, again, the stable solution of the system of the world exists at the boundaries between the interests and greed for resources and need for resources of every element of the natural system, including humans, other species, and such. So that's why it is fundamentally impossible to bypass certain things, because our consciousness, our awareness about ourselves is contingent upon us having a certain biology. And that biology is inherently associated with consumption of animal products because that's what we evolved to do. That's what we evolved to have. And today I would like to discuss not the moral things necessarily, but I would like to approach the subject of when it is time to quit veganism from the following perspective. Very practically, without taking the ethical concerns into account, only in cases when people want to choose their own well-being over their beliefs. Because if a person chooses to pursue their beliefs over their well-being, it's their personal choice. There is nothing wrong with that as long as they're aware of this trade. But so, for people who want to seek well-being for certain goals and objectives, to perform certain evolutionary role, to actually live in accordance to the intention, the program, the genetic program that was put into that person. For those people, I would like to list certain things that will not get better on a vegan diet. So basically, I want to talk about certain health and psychological aspects that emerge early on a vegan diet, while the damage of vegan malnutrition is still reversible, that you can catch and introduce certain necessary foods back into your diet, such that they do not progress, because they're going to get worse despite all the mythology that surrounds those phenomena. Then if we talk about the symptoms to look for early on a vegan diet, if you are not too heavily bound by the belief to stay on this diet no matter what, these are the things that you should pay attention to. First is bloating, gas, anything that's literally malfunction of your gut. You should understand that even if you wipe out your entire microbiome with antibiotics, it will take you 2 to 6 months to fully recover your microbiome. No, pretty much fully recover your microbiome. Unless there is some infestation with some yeast or fungus going on. Normally, if you're relatively healthy, after the microbiome is fully wiped out, it's the matter of 2 to 6 months. And when you think about the vegan diet, vegan MDs, vegan influencers, they often talk about that bloating, the solution for bloating is to enhance your microbiome, is to heal your microbiome. That antibiotic that you took when you were in the elementary school destroyed your microbiome, and because of that, you're bloated while eating species-appropriate food, which is, in their opinion, beans, grasses, grains, and vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds. They will be saying that it is your microbiome that is bad, so you need to push through this and eat a lot of probiotic foods. Often they are themselves gas promoting, such as like sauerkraut, kimchi, different kefirs. So they will be telling you this. But you should understand that if you're gassy and bloated, this is precisely because you have very good microbiome that does what it's supposed to be doing. If you increase the fraction of fiber in your diet and you started experiencing gas and bloating, also some people are sensitive to fructose, also some people have yeast, and so if they start eating a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of sugars, they also can start feeding yeast. And some people will have reactions like IBS reactions to beans and grains and other like lectin containing foods. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just eating a lot of fiber. You should understand that if you have gas and bloating, it's precisely what you want, because you think about the cows that produce methane when they eat grass. And cows are superior in their ability to metabolize grasses, to metabolize different kinds of fibers. Why do you think that you producing gas from eating grasses, from eating fiber, from eating like hulls of different seeds, why do you think that you should have different reaction to them? You should understand that if you have gas and bloating, it's perfect reaction. And the only way to not experience that is to stop consuming things that ferment in your gut. Fermentation/decay. I know that a lot of vegans, vegan influencers especially, they like to paint very scary pictures of meat decaying in the gut. Meat doesn't decay in the gut because meat digests in your stomach, and then it gets treated with pancreatic juices, with bile, and then it goes homogenized, and whatever can get absorbed, gets absorbed through the intestine. The rest gets evacuated. When you think about the fiber decays in the gut. By definition, fermentation is just more beautiful word. So if fiber decays in the gut, decay meaning that it undergoes the bacterial decay. Bacteria and fungus, they're decomposers. That's what they do. If you start though, however, modifying your vegan diet to remove different foods that may cause bloating, including certain like lectin-rich foods and such that are typically the foods that give the nutrition on the vegan diet, presumably, you will run into the issue because you will have nothing to substitute those foods with. So this is a path to even deeper malnutrition if you start trying to reduce foods that give bloating and gas. And you should understand that it will not get better. Bloating and gas will not get better unless you remove factors that create gas and bloating through absolutely natural process. Unlike cow, however, you are unlikely to get any benefits from this fermentation, because when this fermentation happens in the cow, since she has a much more suitable for this process digestive system, she has much higher capacity to eat much more grass, much more fiber. With cows, it results in actually producing some useful metabolites. In humans, to a lesser extent, we do produce certain fatty acids. A bacteria does produce fatty acids, does produce certain compounds. Some compounds get into reactions, they become useful for us. But when you're eating copious amounts of fiber, you are getting much more discomfort and problems than you get anything useful from that. Because again, unlike a cow, we do not have the possibility to absorb all of those nutrients. Bacteria do produce certain nutrients. They produce them for themselves because we do not have adaptations to use all that. So this microbiotic theory that we can feed our microbiome so well that it develops and gives us ultimate comfort and nutrition is a dead end, I think. So while there are benefits to having healthy microbiome, overfeeding it with a bunch of fiber is not viable. It's not useful. There is some threshold beyond which it gives you more discomfort than any benefit. Then the second thing to look for while you are on a vegan diet is cracking heels. If your heels were totally fine beforehand, or they had some minor dryness, on a vegan diet, you may start after a year or two, depending on your previous experiences with diet, you may experience cracking heels. And that is an interesting indicator of, first, omega-3 deficiency, then some hormonal imbalances, especially in women, and also it can be possibly linked to your thyroid and such minerals as selenium and iodine. So this is something that to look out for, and especially if you have cracking heels, if you have cravings of fish, eggs, something with fat, then pay attention to that, because this is a very important sign that you may attribute to just I just changed my shoes, I just changed my hygiene, I just changed, just aged naturally. Now, this thing can appear pretty early on in a vegan diet. That's something to not dismiss. Then number 3 is, of course, injuries. You suddenly start feeling that fitness is dangerous, that your body does not operate, does not move, doesn't have the same ability as it used to. You don't have the same strength, stability. A lot of vegans, I noticed, they have rigidity in one body part, but then some excessive movements in some other body parts, and they don't look smooth. They look like there is no lubrication, but very loose sockets, so to speak. This is something to look for as well. Injuries, strange mobility issues, pains, pinched nerves, all of that. If that never happened in your life before, but then started emerging on a vegan diet after some, let's say a year and a half, 2 years, it's also your sign to quit veganism. It's not going to be better. It just means that you exhausted everything that you acquired before this diet. And you can try to patch the damage with some singular supplements. You can get multivitamin. You should understand that 20 years ago, vegans were instructed to take only B12. Nowadays, B12 is, first of all, considered to be a pretty ambivalent supplement with potentially being harmful. Also, on top of B12, right now, there are so many nutrients that are discovered and advertised for vegans that, what to do if you were for all those 20 years you didn't know about all of that? What would you do? And the list will keep lengthening. The list will keep getting populated with more and more stuff. And also supplements single supplement will not do anything. You need complete nutrition to assimilate them. You need certain gastric juices. You need healthy cholesterol metabolism to assimilate all of those nutrients. You need to eat certain foods to allow natural process to happen. Copious amounts of fiber, copious amounts of plant fats, they won't help assimilate nutrients. Plus also another thing is that many nutrient deficiencies on a vegan diet that you may easily overlook, please watch my playlist Vegan Deficiencies, they may lead to an avalanche of other deficiencies, and you will be chasing them. You may spend thousands of dollars on medical tests, blood work, but they will not tell you anything. In most cases, just easier, just start consuming at least some animal foods to solve most of those problems all at once, as opposed to trying more and more and more supplements. In general, I think that vegan lifestyle is super good thing for the corporations, for the companies, because it literally cultivates excessive consumerism, because you rely on so many products to sustain vegan diet, and the list is increasing and increasing and increasing. Look at how the market of vegan supplements, additives, fake foods bloomed in the past 5 years. It's just gold mine. People understand that there are problems, and people start appreciating different nutrients every year, and things you can be already deficient in something, and then you learn that you were deficient, but while you start like supplementing with certain nutrient that you just became aware of, you're also developing some deficiency that you are not aware of yet, and that catches up very rapidly, causing more and more deficiencies, more and more things to go out of order. So with injuries, pay attention to that. It's one of the signs. Then on the subject of injuries, we also have premature aging and face deformities. Because when you're aging normally, you should not be noticing your aging and changes whatsoever. You literally should be looking at your photograph, let's say, from 10-15 years ago, and notice that something is maybe different. But if you start noticing that your appearance is drastically different from what it was like a year ago, this is a problem. Aging is, again, it's invisible. On a vegan diet, it may happen that since veganism is the main risk factor of vegan diet is elevated homocysteine. Before even all other nutrient deficiencies, elevated homocysteine can appear because of deficiency in B12, and B12 also requires complex of nutrients to be metabolized, and those nutrients are typically also deficient in vegan diets, such as choline, methionine. B6, B9. You can have hyperhomocysteinemia because of deficiency in each of those or the combination of those. And then also you of course need, if you are an animal-rich diet, then you need good amount of glycine to avoid this from the other side. But that's another topic. Hyperhomocysteinemia is the risk factor, the major risk factor on a vegan diet. And unfortunately, vegan diet does have all of those 5 in deficit. So you are with very high likelihood, you will have it. Elevated homocysteine destroys blood vessels. It destroys collagen fibers. Your dermis is largely composed of the collagen, and your skeleton is largely formed of collagen. So are your joints, gut wall, heart valves, other different connective tissues and such. So when you are noticing that you started rapidly aging, this reflects on the state of your entire body. Rapid aging indicates that your bones are rapidly aging, that your joints are rapidly aging, that your tendons, that's why I coupled it with injuries, your tendons are no longer elastic, your ligaments are no longer elastic. The reparative function decreases. Vegans cannot form normal scar tissue, they cannot normally heal. With all of that, be very mindful. If your appearance starts changing, if you are not healing the injuries properly, if you are easily injured, this is a very strong sign that you need to urgently introduce animal products in your diet in some capacity and go on the recovery, on the repair journey, because your resources are up. And it may not be only the amino acids that are necessary for forming the collagen itself. It may be a whole combination of things, including premature destruction of collagen fibers due to elevated homocysteine. For collagen synthesis in general, you need everything that you need to synthesize proteins, which involves multiple minerals. You need ATP. ATP requires iron. ATP requires good carrying of oxygen. I know that a lot of vegans, they like to bring up sugar, that sugar is energy. Awesome, sugar is energy, but you need oxygen to synthesize this energy from sugar. If you have anemia, you cannot produce units of energy. It requires oxygen. Then you need manganese, magnesium, you need zinc, you need lysine, you need the glycine, proline, hydroxyproline. All of that is in copper. You need all of that to form collagen. And vitamin C also to retain some homeostasis, to ensure that the reagents that participate in the reaction of collagen synthesis, they don't get pacified prematurely. So all of that is necessary. Iron too, iron itself. Even like iron ions are necessary for that. It may be an indicative of the whole array of nutrient deficiencies, not just some singular amino acids. It's much deeper than that. And also you're promoting destruction of collagen as well. Then for ladies, of course, another thing to pay attention to is periods. A lot of people report very cheerfully that, oh my God, my periods used to be a whole week long, and now I don't feel no PMS. And my periods last 2 days. And they're very, very light. This is nothing to be happy about. If you, your entire life, had normal cycle, you felt your ovulation, because when we ovulate, our temperature increases slightly. Some women can feel it. Then you have progesterone phase of the cycle. And that's also felt by the body, because progesterone also associated with some somatic responses in the body. We may become a little bit tired and stuff like that. We might have some water retention happening. This is the hormone that retains pregnancy that we have dominating the premenstrual phase. And then during periods, if you always had like a week of periods with like 4 days of active bleeding, and now it is down to 2, the bad news is that you're just not forming normal uterine lining. So if you notice that your periods became exceptionally light, this means that either you're protein deficient and you are incapable of synthesizing normal endometrium inside of the womb, or you're not ovulating. So you're hormone deficient, so your body is not capable of producing enough hormones to stimulate ovulation. And that's why your cycle doesn't happen to the full capacity. So it either is protein deficiency, or it is other deficiencies that can be protein deficiency as well. It can be deficiency of cholesterol. It can be deficiency of animal fats, certain minerals, vitamins that do not allow you to ovulate. And that starts to affect your cycle. So if you, for example, get very excited that, okay, on a vegan diet, I no longer menstruate as heavy and I don't feel my ovulation, my PMS is gone. Don't be too happy about it. Go and get checked if you even ovulate. There are tests. If your cycle remains regular, if you don't skip cycles, then it will be easier for you to track the days when you are supposed to ovulate. But exceptionally light periods, or their disappearance altogether that we observe in many long-term vegan ladies, it's literally a sign of upcoming artificially malnutrition-induced early menopause, premature menopause. And this is not something to be cheering up for, because our female hormones, they protect our blood vessels, they protect our bones, our immunity, and our brain, our cognition. So it is something to embrace, even if periods give you some discomfort. There are ways to manage period wellness without opting for causing them to disappear or stop functioning in that realm as a woman altogether. Then another thing that should be an indication that you might want to quit your vegan diet is nocturia. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but if you need to get up at night several times to use bathroom, of course, one of the factors may be that you're eating a lot of diuretic plants. Because I, for example, sometimes would have my salad for dinner. The salad contained a ton of dandelion greens and a ton of parsley. Both herbs are diuretic, and actually I embrace that effect as a person who's prone to migraines, because migraines are often associated with water retention. That's why I avoid starches. That's why I minimize consumption of sugar. That's why I don't eat like grains, potatoes, all of that stuff. When you eat diuretic herbs, of course, it helps to release all of this water. You may be running into this issue because of that. But if they are the bulk of your nutrition, like if you, for example, eat a lot of greens, a lot of fruits that are diuretic, and you actually have to eat your entire day when you are a vegan, you cannot just squeeze your meals in certain window of the day. This is one aspect of that. This will be disturbing your sleep regardless if you cannot push all those diuretic plants away from before your bedtime. However, on the other hand, needing to get up all the time to use bathroom can be due to other things as well, and they are more concerning and less easy to fix while preserving your diet as it is. And it can be either due to insulin resistance, or it can be due to low testosterone, or it can be due to vitamin D deficiency. On vitamin D deficiency, I have a video. It's lumped to cholesterol, so you can watch it, vegan deficiency playlist. So this nightly getting up multiple times to use bathroom should alarm you, because you deserve 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep if we speak on average. You should sleep peacefully. And in general, beyond those reasons that I just listed, if your sleep is disturbed from some other reasons as well, you are not capable of sustaining normal full night's sleep even when you don't have any apparent stressors. You don't, like, for example, work on some busy project that keeps you up at night because you like keep solving all those problems while you're laying in bed without any psychological problems. If you just cannot sleep normally, it's also an issue because your body is exhausting its resources as well on top of nutrition. But this insomnia can also be caused by certain nutritional factors. Some subtle anxiety can also start developing. Pay attention to these signs. They're not likely to get better while retaining the vegan diet regimen. Then another thing that is incredibly common among vegans is dental issues. Dental issues are, they arise from multiple factors. First of all, of course, is internal. You're not getting enough vitamin D. You're not getting enough vitamin K2. Those two vitamins, deficiency in those vitamins may worsen your dental status. On the other hand, you are also, since again, on a vegan diet, you cannot just do like one meal a day, let's say, and be all set. On vegan diet, what often happens is pre-breakfast, breakfast, post-breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner, snack before bed. Because again, it's a sugar-based diet. All carbohydrates reduce, all soluble carbohydrates reduce to sugar in our body. That's why I call them sugar. So it's sugar-based diet. Plus also it's very light diet. Without much substance. So people tend to be more hungry. They tend to eat a lot. And a lot of resources, they advertise eating a lot. They advertise eating huge portions of food. They advertise having snack on hand. It's not physiological because our enamel can only restore itself when a person is hungry. When blood sugar is low and when you're constantly snacking, you're reducing both the internal signaling for the enamel to repair itself. But you're also eating carbohydrates, you're also eating sugar. Soluble carbohydrates, it can be starches, it can be pretty much starch and sugar itself, disaccharides, they all get reduced to glucose in your mouth because our saliva contains amylase. Or if you're eating, let's say, some rice and pasta, they just stick, some even like beans, it all just sticks to the teeth. It sticks in between the teeth as well. And that's where it becomes the food for bacteria unless you religiously clean your teeth the second after you consume some, dates, fruits, or grains, something like that. So with that in mind, you constantly subject your oral cavity to either carbohydrates or consequences of consuming carbohydrates. Your saliva will remain acidic at all times. That's why people notice erosion, decay, cavities, because the tooth immunity to all of those stressors reduces because vitamin D, vitamin K2 are in deficiency because of absence of animal fats, because of disturbed cholesterol metabolism, because of too much fiber and plant fats. But at the same time, because there's acid at all times, either immediately consuming acidic substances or having the aftermath of consuming them, and through like bacterial fermentation as well. If something got stuck to the teeth, some carbohydrates, bacteria will turn them into acid eventually. So that's what happens. Dental health is another thing that will not get better. You can do oil pulling 24/7. You can find any toothpaste you want. You can do all sorts of hygienic tricks. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Your saliva will be acidic, and the vitamins necessary for dental health will not be delivered. Plus also calcium deficiency is another huge thing that happens on vegan diet as well, and that's another subject. Dental health is not going to improve unless you do some serious diet interventions. Another important thing to be very aware of and notice it, and don't take it as some natural progression, do not ignore it, is fatigue and depression. If you start noticing that you feel tired, if you wake up tired, if you don't have enthusiasm to do things that used to be pleasurable for you, if you notice that you lose taste for life, if you lose libido, if you lose energy, if you lose desire to do things that used to give you a lot of pleasure, some healthy desires, some like prolific, normal, healthy desires that used to give you a lot of joy, some creative ambitions and stuff like that. If you notice that those things died out in your life, that you don't have energy for anything, don't think that it's your natural aging. Don't think that you need to just sleep on some other mattress. You don't think that you need to start like ventilating your room in a certain way or use some feng shui methods to rearrange your bedroom. It's not that. It's likely that if it's consistent, if you experience it for over like 1 month, let's say, it's likely the spectrum of deficiencies. It can be B12, B9, B6, iron, methionine, and choline deficient anemia. It can be deficiency in vitamin D. It can be deficiency in certain other amino acids that give you this condition, and you will never know because the symptoms are similar in the beginning, but they're all resolved by one single thing: animal foods. So if you start noticing that, it's unlikely that any supplements will start helping. Also thyroid things, elements that are necessary for thyroid health also can cause that. It's not going to get better. You can go to therapy. Yes, you can go through therapy, figure out some psychological problems that you may have. But if this appeared specifically after some time of you following a vegan diet, it's safe to assume that it's likely the vegan diet. If no other stressors, no other factors, some like traumatic events or something like that happened. So it is a sign for you to start changing your diet. It's not going to get better on a vegan diet, this condition, fatigue and depression. Then another interesting sign to look out for is if you always need to readjust yourself. If suddenly, like after a year or two of following a vegan diet, you need to constantly massage yourself. If you constantly are uncomfortable, there is discomfort in your like lower extremities, in your back, and you cannot just sit calmly. You lay in bed, but you cannot relax unless you do some yoga, some stretching, some exercises. That is also likely a sign that you are being deficient in something that is found in animal foods if that emerged in the vegan diet. So this is another subtle sign to not ignore. Even if you're okay, you will get yourself some like massaging tool and stuff like that, but array of mineral deficiencies, array of amino acid deficiencies can cause that to happen. If you are also riding the anemic state, if you are not producing good collagen, if you're destroying your bones, if you're destroying your muscles because of creatine deficiency, because of methionine deficiency, if you have poor, let's say, local blood supply, if you have poor energy delivery, oxygen delivery to those tissues, that will likely cause this condition to happen, those sensations. So it can be a whole array of things that cause that discomfort in the body, making you desire to improve blood supply there. If it is the onset of destruction of bones, loss of muscle mass, that also will do because you are technically losing structural support. Some micro things, they start getting destroyed, they start collapsing, so all of that can lead to various discomforts in the body. So don't dismiss that symptom. If you are always uncomfortable in your body and you cannot just be still and comfortable. Then another thing that is it's alarming. It's not just something that should make you weary and give you some, let's say, idea that you might experiment, observe, try some supplements and whatnot. It is literally the emergency call for you to quit vegan diet as neurological symptoms if you find yourself not being able to formulate a phrase, if in the middle of saying a sentence you forget what you were talking about in the beginning or what you were going to say. This is when you need to run to the store, buy a whole pack of eggs, get some fish, any fish pretty much, preferably wild caught fish, and eat it all immediately because that all signifies that your brain is already in very dangerous state and it's begging for nutrition. And brain can be begging for choline, it can be begging for omega-3s, likely, and also for the whole spectrum of B vitamins, of course. That's why this is something that should alarm you a lot. If you start having neurological problems, they will not be getting better. Can be also due to B12 deficiency. If you are already taking B12 supplement, you may not be metabolizing it properly because of other complementary deficiencies that you will not be able to trace unless, again, you invest a bunch of money, a bunch of time, and lose precious time. Also, long-term memory loss as well. And another thing is if you have problems with spatial orientation, if your coordination starts being poor, if you cannot complete some complex movements, if your brain kind of like glitches during them, if you stop like recognizing certain things in the middle of movement, for example, you like forget where you were moving, your body feels clumsy, that's a very dangerous sign. And that's the moment you should quit vegan diet immediately, without any wait, without any internal dialogue pretty much. And then I would like to move on to the psychological phenomena that also should alarm you. You should quit veganism if you find yourself needing to watch Dominion, Earthlings, Forks Over Knives in order to keep pushing. So if you find yourself in general needing some uplifting to keep pushing, you should understand that you are acting not from the reason, not from practicality, not from the point of seeking your best interest and you're addressing your physiological needs. You're talking from the perspective of the concepts of beliefs. So you need yourself to get manipulated to keep doing something that goes against your needs and nature. And again, if you're into such stuff, if you are into harming yourself, then it's totally cool if you're aware of that. But if you catch yourself that I need to rewatch Dominion because I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, that's a problem. And that's a very common thing. In fact, a lot of people in the community, they do that to stay afloat, to keep pushing, to not lose track of the main idea, of the main concept, against their desires, against their needs. Then number 2 on that same note is that you start buying replicas. You start buying meat replicas, some like fake animal food figurines, like, fish and some fish-shaped sludge, or I don't know, some like fake eggs, like this like squeeze eggs, all of that stuff. If you start buying that, if you feel impulse to buy that, that's another way of manipulating yourself into going against your nature. And you find a shortcut. How can I manipulate to myself to do something that I think is good, but that I don't necessarily want? That's a mental trick. You should be aware of that. And that's a psychological thing that should alarm you. If you feel the impulse to eat anything but plants in their normal form, that's where you are trying to deceive yourself. Deceiving yourself always comes with very high price tag. And especially if you are, for example, looking for some fake eggs, if you're looking for some fake fish, That's your brain screaming directly that it needs those substances. It knows where it can get the fatty acids that it needs. So it tries to make you do that, tries to make you go for it. So you should listen to those impulses, because your whole physiology mainly services the most advanced computer created by nature, human brain. You know what you need actually at all times. So you just need to hear that. Then another important psychological thing, alarming sign, is that you start being possessed by veganism. All your life areas start being possessed by it. You look at every person around you through the prism of veganism. And while, of course, yeah, it's a huge ideological thing, and you think of yourself as a person who is aware of the world, you want to do good, you think that you're doing a lot of good, it shouldn't steal from other areas of your life. It shouldn't steal your ability to be present in the world, perform your normal duties, developing your talents, communicating with people who care about you pretty much. So when you start becoming more vegan than human, that's another important dangerous thing, because if you start associating your entire identity with veganism, that's a huge issue, because it's a very vulnerable life. You should be rooted in as many things as possible in life. You should have very solid foundation, because if you put everything on one pillar, you become very unstable. And imagine quitting veganism when your entire identity is on veganism. Imagine dealing with any problems when your entire identity is on veganism. I don't find it to be normal or beneficial or good. I think that life should be very balanced. It's an art that we learn as we go through adulthood. But pay attention to your life. How much veganism is in your life? Did it become an all-absorbing cult for you? Because if so, if it started spilling beyond the domain where it belongs, then it is an issue. You are on the path of vulnerability. And the last thing, related to that, but not the last, is that if you start feeling like you are an oracle. Here's a friendly advice. I don't know, maybe it does not apply to your life, but it does definitely apply to my life. And also I saw this observing some other incidences of that as well. When you start genuinely feeling that you fully understood the world around you, when you know it all, when the knowledge that you got is so perfect, and you get so passionate about it, when you get so sure about it, when you get so invested in it, you're literally an oracle. You discovered it. This is the moment when life is preparing very powerful, humbling lessons for you. So just for your own sake, if you find yourself being an oracle on the theme of veganism and the realm of veganism specifically, and you feel like you should go and deliver the message, you should preach to people that veganism is the answer. It is the answer. Know that life is preparing some fun experiences that will make you think otherwise. Or that will try to make you think otherwise. And perhaps if you don't listen to those lessons, you'll have to pay a very high price for that. You should humble yourself before you get humbled by some external things. That's in my opinion. That's how it works in my life. So that's why, be careful with that. Sometimes it's very helpful to run a test or run this exercise on yourself. What if everything I'm passionate about is wrong? And what would I do if I find out that what I'm doing is wrong? And think whether your life will get affected too much for you to be ready for that. So think in this context. And then the last thing to pay attention to and to be alarmed by is, in general, if you notice that happening, you should call all of your relatives you should call all of your friends, anyone who is around you. Invite them over and ask them to bring you to the grocery store to buy at least eggs. And then bring you home with those eggs, prepare those eggs for you. Confiscate your phone, confiscate everything. And make them feed you those eggs and watch you digest those eggs. So they should stay with you for 24 hours, all of those people who can help you. If you noticed, if you decided that you want to join some MLM that sells juicing, starvation protocols, or supplement membership, something like that. This is when it is this thing does not leave you any choice. At that point, you must go and purchase some animal foods because you need to help yourself urgently. And that is the last thing that I want to mention, some relatively early and reversible things to pay attention to when you're on a vegan diet that will tell you that it is time to quit it. The experiment should be aborted. So thank you for watching. My fellow ex-vegans, please tell me in the comments what would you add to this list and whether you disagree with any of the things that I mentioned. Thank you and bye.